The story opens with a boy named Rio, who learns from an angel that he died after being hit by Truck-kun. The angel explains that he'll be reincarnated, and when Rio wonders what kind of life he should aim for, she tells him he's free to live however he chooses. Wanting nothing more than a peaceful new start, he agrees. The angel then tells him he'll be reborn in a magical world called Phi, where roughly 20% of the population can naturally control elemental magic. Rio discovers his strongest affinity is water. Since he asked for an easy life, the angel arranges for him to be reborn inside the Rondo Forest, with a home surrounded by a protective barrier that keeps monsters away. She also gives him a starter pack, a fridge full of food that will last 2 months so he doesn't need to hunt immediately, plus a monster encyclopedia describing the creatures he may encounter. Curious about his magic, Rio steps outside and shouts a spell, forming a ball of water in his hand. But he quickly realizes the chant isn't required. Everything depends on visualization. As long as he can imagine the magic, he can cast it. Later, he tries to take a bath, but the water is freezing. He attempts to start a fire by rubbing sticks, but gives up. Staring at the sun sparks an idea. He compresses water and removes heat to form ice, then shapes it into a Mang lens to start a fire. After finally enjoying a warm bath, he thinks about how comfortable life will be with magic. The next morning, Rio reflects on his future. Peaceful or not, he still needs the ability to defend himself. He tests his water ball again, but knows it's too weak. He attempts making a water jet, but the stream is still feeble. Remembering the angel's advice to rely on imagination, he keeps practicing until his water jets reach a decent level, and he even learns to heat water with magic. The following day, he tries creating ice directly from the air. The ice drops harmlessly to the ground, but he stays determined, training until he drains his mana and collapses from exhaustion. After resting, he resumes practice day after day. He still can't launch the ice yet, but he manages to create it instantly now. He crafts a spear and ventures into the forest for his first hunt. Finding some useful fire-starting stones, he's suddenly startled by a wild boar charging at him. Panic freezes him in place, but he dodges at the last moment as the boar rushes past. Regaining his composure, Rio freezes the ground to make it slip, then forms ice spikes that the boar runs straight into. Back home, he checks the monster guide and sees that the lesser boar is the easiest creature in the forest. Flipping to the back, he reads about much more dangerous monsters, dragons capable of wiping out entire cities alone, where the only real strategy is to flee. There's also a page mentioning fallen angels called Akuma, though details on them are scarce. Feeling confident, Rio heads back into the forest, this time without clothes, but is attacked by an assassin hawk while he's distracted. Knowing these birds strike with their claws and beak, he creates ice shields to block the blows. He fires water jets, but the hawk easily bats them aside and dives at him again. An ice shield saves him at the last second. The bird gets knocked down, rises again with one eye missing, then retreats. Although relieved, Rio wanders around until he realizes he's lost. While searching for home, he stumbles upon a glowing lake and discovers a headless man alongside his horse. Afterward, Rio falls into a routine of hunting, storing food, and constantly practicing magic. He suffers plenty of defeats, but grows stronger each time, eventually reaching the point where his water jet can slice through stone. He returns to the Headless Man, whom he has been using as a training opponent, but the guidebook contains no information about him, leading Rio to assume he's far beyond beginner level. Rio challenges him, but is overwhelmed. Even his ice shields shatter instantly. Instead of killing him, the Headless Man conjures a sword made of water and hands it to him, telling him to master it. One day while hunting, the same assassin hawk reappears, only now darker and clearly evolved. Rio forms a 5-layer ice wall, but the hawk breaks through effortlessly and fends off his ice spikes. Rio attacks with everything he has, but the hawk counters with its supersonic voice and slicing wings. It even spews lightning, which he narrowly avoids thanks to his spear acting as a lightning rod. As the hawk charges in again, Rio draws his water sword, cutting through its sonic attack. When it swoops for another strike, he spots an opening and drives the blade into its neck. Refusing to die quietly, the hawk fights on, but Rio realizes it evolved specifically to battle him. Grateful for the challenge, he finishes the fight and heads home. On his way back, a dragon appears and speaks to him telepathically. It asks whether he saw a hawk, and Rio nervously apologizes, thinking the bird was its servant. But the dragon praises him, saying he must be quite strong. It compliments Rio's sword and explains that it originally belonged to the Fairy King, meaning Rio must have earned great favor. They chat for a while until someone calls for the dragon, who introduces himself as Luan and promises they'll meet again. Meanwhile, the angel senses something unusual. She discovers that Rio possesses a hidden ability, eternal youth, a trait not seen since the very first hero she sent into that world over 10,000 years ago. Rio heads to the shore to satisfy his craving for seafood, but instead he stumbles upon a shipwreck with several people washed onto the beach. He quickly checks their pulses and discovers that only one person is still breathing. It soon becomes clear that the ship was destroyed by a massive sea monster. The survivor later wakes up inside Rio's home. Confused, the boy starts looking around, trying to figure out where he is, when Rio suddenly appears. The boy is startled because he never sensed anyone approaching. He also notices that Rio isn't wearing proper clothes but decides not to ask out of politeness. Grateful for being saved, the boy introduces himself as Abel. Rio brushes off the praise, saying he didn't do anything special and expressing regret that the others didn't survive. Abel replies that they were smugglers, so their deaths don't really bother him. When Abel's stomach growls, Rio offers him food. During the meal, Rio explains that he can't make clothing since he doesn't have thread. Abel almost asks why he doesn't just buy some in town, but stops himself, thinking Rio might not have money. Rio then explains that there are no towns or cities nearby, making money useless anyway. Abel is impressed by how Rio manages to live alone and asks if he hunts with the knife on the table. Rio explains that it's only for protection and that he mainly uses water magic for hunting. To demonstrate, he fills a jug with magic, shocking Abel. Even in the central regions, only about half the population can use magic. This makes Rio suspect that the angel who spoke to him may have been wrong about how rare magic is. Wanting to confirm something, Abel asks to return to the beach. On the way, he asks why Rio doesn't use a staff. When Rio says he doesn't own one, Abel realizes he may have been rude again, assuming Rio couldn't afford it. To make up for it, Abel promises to take charge if danger arises, and Rio cautiously agrees. Back at the wreck, they find that the bodies are gone, either eaten or washed away, making Abel's survival even more miraculous. Abel realizes what he was searching for is gone, meaning he now needs to reunite with his friends in the town of Lon. Rio mentions that his own destination lies far to the north. Abel offers to guide him since he knows the area well. Rio accepts, but says he must settle a few things first. That night, Rio straps on his sword and heads out, telling Abel he just needs to inform someone of his departure. Abel assumes he's paying respects to a loved one, but Rio instead visits the Fairy King to share news of his journey and thank him for all the training. Knowing it's their final session, Rio fights with everything he has, landing several solid hits, though he still can't defeat the Fairy King. Impressed, the Fairy King rewards him with a special robe using magic. The next morning, Rio and Abel begin their journey, with Rio temporarily leaving his peaceful life behind. Deep in the forest, they encounter a wild boar. Abel takes the lead and uses his combat skill, Total Impalement, blasting straight through the beast. Rio is amazed, and Abel explains that warriors without magic rely on combat skills instead. Later, they come across some lizard folk but choose to avoid a fight and quietly change direction. However, Rio senses they're being followed. When the lizards attack, Rio instantly defeats them with a barrage of ice spells. Abel is stunned, having always believed that mages could only cast one spell at a time. Rio assumes the difference may depend on the type of magic he uses and casually conjures water for them to drink. In an open plain, Rio notices the strange currency Abel carries. Abel explains that the central provinces use a different monetary system. Soon after, they accidentally enter a golem-infested area. Abel attacks with his strongest move, but the golems regenerate instantly. Thinking fast, Rio creates a 10-layered ice wall that crushes them completely. One final golem shuts down after being lifted off the ground, and they realize the monsters draw power from the earth itself. Later, they witness wyverns attacking a massive hippo-like monster, creating a full-scale monster battle right in front of them. Excited, they set up camp nearby. Abel brings up the dungeon they'd been discussing, and Rio becomes eager to explore it once they reach Lon. As they rest, they talk about dwarves, elves, and knights passing through the region. Rio remarks that they'll soon run into other humans after crossing the mountains. When Abel asks how he knows, Rio vaguely credits someone who shared that knowledge but refuses to give details. Suddenly, a gigantic monster swoops overhead. They barely escape by throwing food to distract it, realizing there was no chance they could defeat something that powerful. Abel starts feeling uneasy about the area, but Rio defends his homeland, suggesting Abel simply lacks survival experience. Soon after, Rio notices the same wyverns flying north, and just as expected, they find the creatures feasting on another beast. Abel warns that normally it takes at least 20 people to hunt even one wyvern, and even then, casualties are expected. Ignoring the danger, Rio charges ahead and pins the monsters down with ice spears. Abel follows with total impalement, killing them. Another group of wyverns attacks soon after, but Rio wipes them out as well. Abel collects a green gem from one of the fallen monsters. When yet another flock approaches, Abel rushes forward without hesitation, making Rio laugh at how addicted to battle he's become. At last, after countless dangers, the two finally reach the edge of the mountain range. Rio casually mentions that he wouldn't have minded taking on a few more wyverns. Abel quickly reminds him that wishing for encounters with monsters isn't exactly normal, but he's still pleased that they managed to collect so many magic stones. As they travel farther north, Abel wonders where they've ended up, and Rio quietly hopes they haven't wandered into the Dewy Empire. Abel reassures him that the Empire is much farther north, which makes Rio visibly relieved. Abel then asks if he has some sort of problem with the Empire, and Rio simply replies that he just dislikes the name. Soon after, Rio spots a roadway, and Abel realizes something important about the mountain they had just crossed. He tells Rio that if they follow the road west, they'll eventually reach a town called Caudy. As they head that way, Rio admits he's looking forward to sleeping in a proper bed again, and Abel adds that they should make sure to enjoy the local food while they're there. When they arrive, they stop at a tavern. Abel advises Rio to officially register with the Adventurers Guild so he can get an identification card. Without it, he'll have to pay fees every time he enters a town. He explains that he acted as Rio's guarantor earlier and covered the fee for him. Rio jokes that he owes him one. Abel also mentions that they can sell their magic stones and monster parts at the guild for a good price, though using them personally would require an alchemist. Rio is surprised to hear that this world even has alchemy. Then his meal arrives, curry, and Rio is completely stunned. In most reincarnation stories, curry either doesn't exist or takes years to recreate, so he can't believe it's already a thing here. One bite is all it takes for him to order a second dish, secretly hoping that Lynn also makes curry. The next morning, Rio is still talking about how good the curry was and asks Abel if he's hiding any other surprises. Abel awkwardly dodges the question. They continue traveling until they reach a hilltop overlooking the town of Lon and its wide wheat fields. When they reach the gate, a guard immediately recognizes Abel, explaining that everyone was worried because he had been presumed missing. Abel explains that Rio rescued him. After paying the entry fee and showing his card, he finally steps back into his hometown, and Rio is happy for him. On their way to the guild, Abel explains that because a B-rank adventurer is vouching for him, Rio can start at either E or D rank. Rio is impressed, and Abel adds that higher ranks mean access to better-paying quests. When they enter the guild, the other adventurers rush to greet Abel, relieved that he's safe. Realizing how well-known he is, Rio quietly slips outside so he doesn't get in the way. Outside, he unexpectedly runs into an elf. They both freeze for a moment, studying each other. She recognizes that the robe he's wearing belongs to the Fairy King, meaning the king must have taken a liking to him to gift something so valuable. Unfortunately, she's in a hurry, but she hopes they'll cross paths again. Abel brings Rio back inside the guild hall and proudly introduces him as the one who rescued him. The adventurers cheer and thank Rio for what he did. Abel escorts him to the front desk, hoping Rio can be registered as a D rank, but the receptionist is shocked. No one from the Crimson Sword has ever recommended anyone before. Abel simply says that Rio is exceptional. She explains that they'll need proof of his strength, and Abel asks if they can speak directly with the guild master. They wait in a meeting room until the guild master bursts in, worried sick, but relieved that Abel is safe. Abel insists that Rio deserves the real praise. The guild master introduces himself as Hugh and thanks Rio sincerely, leaving Rio a bit embarrassed from all the compliments. Hugh asks for evidence of Rio's power, so Abel presents the magic stones they brought. Hugh immediately recognizes their size and color as wyvern stones and demands to know how many people it took to defeat them. Abel tells him it was just the two of them hunting monsters in the forbidden Malefic Mountains. Abel then reveals that when he spotted the road to Kalat, he finally realized where they were. Hugh explains that legend says nobody returns alive from those mountains, and even experienced adventurers avoid them. But because he trusts Abel, he accepts Rio's endorsement. Before they can continue, several adventurers, including Lynn, Warren, and Rhea, rush in, relieved Abel isn't dead. Hugh sends for the registration equipment and asks Rio to follow him, but Abel stops him and says he wants to show Hugh something first. He asks Rio to wait at the reception desk. As they walk, Hugh tells Rio that the Crimson Sword is the most famous party in the entire town. Rio starts doubting whether he can really start at D rank so easily, but Hugh tells him plainly that although he cares deeply for Abel, he knows Abel isn't strong enough to kill wyverns alone, which means Rio is extremely gifted. Hugh even points out that Rio has the build of a warrior. The receptionist introduces herself as Nina and begins Rio's formal registration. She asks about his magic element and his living arrangements. Since he just arrived, he's allowed to stay in the guild dorms for up to 300 days. She then explains the basics of dungeons, and when she notices how excited he is, she signs him up for the next dungeon course. Rio places his hand on a crystal, and his guild card is created. Nina congratulates him on becoming an official adventurer. Meanwhile, Hugh collapses into his chair, exhausted but relieved, says to the entire guild that Abel has safely returned. Abel takes Rio to collect his reward and insists on buying him proper clothes and a staff, saying every mage should have one. Rio comments that he can use magic without one and could even fight with his sword, but Abel says it's closer to a dagger than a real blade. Rio admits that he still knows very little about how things work in this world, so Abel gives him a quick crash course while they shop. Rio learns that time flows the same as on Earth, 24-hour days and 7-day weeks, and clothing sizes are measured in centimi. Realizing they also have curry here, Rio concludes that someone else must have been reincarnated and influenced this world before him. When Abel steps out of the store, Rio asks where they're heading next. Abel says they're going to a celebration. Back at the guild, everyone throws a party to welcome Abel home and honor Rio's bravery. The following morning, Rio complains about overdrinking, and Nena introduces him to his new roommates, Niels and Ido. As soon as she leaves, Niels starts rambling about how cute she is, and Ido immediately shoots him down. Nina returns with another boy named Aman, who explains that his family died and he came to Lon to make a living. Rio introduces himself since they'll be attending the dungeon lesson together the next day. Elsewhere, Abel tells his teammates about Rio's magic, but they can't believe it. Lynn says that magic can only be cast near the magician. Summoning ice from a distance and dropping it onto a monster shouldn't be possible. Abel insists he saw it with his own eyes. Lynn then reminds him that wyverns have a wind barrier that naturally deflects spells, making it impossible to kill one with magic alone. Rhea suddenly recalls someone who could do something like that. The Inferno Magician, a man rumored to turn a wyvern to ash with a single spell and wipe out armies instantly. She thinks that if Abel is telling the truth, Rio is an extraordinary discovery, and she fears what might happen if he ever sided with the Empire's forces. Abel reassures her that Rio would never be affiliated with the dreaded Davy name. And with that, episode 3 comes to an end. After 6 days of training, Rio and Amon finish their beginner course and are taught the basics of dungeon exploration. Their first task is to enter the dungeon's initial layer, which makes Amon uneasy. Sensing his nerves, Rio tries to reassure him. Rio asks the instructor whether adventurers can instantly travel to dungeon layers they have already cleared. The instructor explains that some southern dungeons allow this, but Lawn's dungeon does not. It's revealed that the town of Lawn was built directly around an underground dungeon. Every few years, a phenomenon known as the Great Tidal Bore occurs, causing monsters to multiply rapidly and surge toward the surface. To protect themselves, the town constructed double defensive walls. Rio is intrigued by the town's clever defenses, but Amon finds the idea frightening. The instructor calms him, explaining that the event is unlikely to happen anytime soon. As they enter the dungeon, Rio notices Amon is still tense and promises that everything will be fine. Although the instructor had said the first layer should be free of monsters, Rio suddenly senses danger ahead. He tells Amon that he'll restrain the enemy with magic, giving Amon the chance to strike the final blow. A soldier ant soon appears, and Rio recalls from his guidebook that the most effective way to defeat it is by striking the base of its neck. Using ice lances, he pins the creature in place and signals Amon to finish it. After Amon lands the final hit, his confidence grows. Rio then tells him to collect the ant's magic stone. Amon hesitates, but Rio explains that gathering such items is part of an adventurer's livelihood. Back at the guild, the group celebrates their success, and Aitito is impressed that they managed to defeat a soldier ant on their very first dungeon run. Encouraged, Amon expresses his desire to return to the dungeon. Rio invites him to join again, mentioning his plan to explore down to the 3rd level. However, he's troubled by the fact that the first layer was supposed to be monster-free, raising questions about why a soldier ant was there. Niels points out that only bats are meant to inhabit the first floor, while IS adds that ants have been appearing on the first 2 layers for several months. Abel then shows up and explains that ants are capable of digging upward through the dungeon. He introduces himself, shocking Rio's new companions when they realize he's Abel of the Crimson Sword. Niels excitedly calls Abel his hero and asks to shake his hand. Abel advises them not to overexert themselves, reminding them that an adventurer's top priority is survival. When Rio asks why Abel is at the guild, Abel replies that he has just returned from a quest. Before he can say more, the rest of his party interrupts, reminding him that they were supposed to report to the guild master first. Abel brushes it off, saying he was only helping guide new adventurers, but Lynn tells Warren to grab him, and he's promptly dragged away. Lynn briefly locks eyes with Rio before Ria scolds her for being rude and leads the group off to meet the guildmaster. Ria scolds Lynn for staring, saying it's impolite, but Lynn explains that she was only curious about Rio because of the rumors claiming he's an extraordinary magician. Ria admits that she's interested as well. Abel overhears them and remarks that they'll soon see just how powerful Rio really is. The following day, Rio and Amon return to the dungeon and continue using the same teamwork strategy. Rio restrains the enemies with magic, while Amon delivers the final strikes. During a short rest, Rio notices that Amon's sword technique closely resembles Abel's fighting style. Curious, he asks who trained him. Amon explains that he studied under a man named Kira, who was educated at one of the prestigious academies in the royal capital, Hume. Confident in Amon's potential, Rio tells him that he could someday reach Abel's level. Amon then wonders how Rio knows so much about sword combat despite being a mage. Wanting to avoid mentioning the Fairy King, Rio simply says that he once had a mentor. Although Amon is eager to keep going, Rio advises him to slow down and focus on building endurance, reminding him that even someone as skilled as Abel practices his basics every day. On the following day, Rio visits the library to research alchemy. The librarian suggests starting with a beginner-friendly cookbook. After spending some time reading, Rio realizes that he'll need to purchase his own books to truly study the subject, but he worries about the expense. As he steps outside, lost in thought, a sudden solar eclipse darkens the sky. He notices that everyone around him has vanished, and an uneasy feeling sets in. Without warning, a blast of fire strikes him, but Rio manages to block it with an ice shield. A demon approaches, questioning how a human ended up in this world before deciding to kill him regardless. Rio realizes he's likely trapped in some kind of alternate dimension, making escape impossible. The demon launches another fire attack, which he blocks, only for her to follow up with a wind lance aimed at his heart. Thanks to his robe, Rio survives. The demon recognizes the garment as belonging to the Fairy King and wonders what Rio did to earn such protection. Since her magic isn't defeating him, she switches to sword combat, and Rio draws his own blade. The two clash evenly. When she tries to use magic again, Rio interrupts it with an ice lance and counters with a storm of ice shards. She melts them with fire and raises stone walls to block the rest, but Rio's water jets break through and strike her. As he charges forward, he notices her wounds regenerating, and he's knocked back into a building. Suddenly, water surrounds the demon, and the moment it touches her skin, it boils violently, burning her. She quickly burrows underground to escape. When she reappears, she's thrilled, declaring that it's the first time a human has ever caused her real pain. Though she wants to continue fighting, she says her time is up as the eclipse is ending. She promises they'll meet again, introduces herself as Leonore, and vanishes. Though relieved, Rio realizes how close he came to death and understands that he must grow stronger. If not for his robe, he wouldn't have survived. Determined, he decides to buy the books he wanted from the library. To his surprise, he discovers he has far more money than expected. He recalls Abel mentioning that wyvern magic stones were valuable, but he never imagined they were worth so much. When Rio returns to his room, he's shocked to find it empty. Hearing noise outside, he rushes out and sees his friends beaten and lying on the ground. Using his magic, Rio quickly defeats 4 bullies. Niels explains that the attackers were led by Dan, their former roommate. Dan assumes Rio must be weak in close combat because he's a mage, but when he charges, Rio effortlessly takes him down. Afterwards, Rio casually suggests they all take a hot bath to relax. Hideo heals his injured shoulder and notes that Rio must have taken a serious blow, adding that he was lucky it didn't hit his heart. Rio admits that the attack was meant to kill him, but he narrowly avoided it. His friends are stunned and wonder who could have pushed him that far. Rio says it's a long story and promises to explain another time, deciding that for now, he just wants to rest.